Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Rollwise podcast. Today, we are celebrating GMs as March 4th was International Game Master Day. This is a holiday I had never heard about, and I say holiday in the loosest sense here,
International.
international.
International
But
holiday.
but this is obviously celebrated every country worldwide. Hell, even it's everywhere. Everywhere it celebrates this on March 4th. And so we thought we would do a couple of episodes where we shared some of the best advice we've received, both as game masters and as players, to help game masters have it maybe a little bit easier for them, because we've obviously read a lot of stuff over the years, and we thought it would be perfect to share in celebration of International Game Master Day. But before that, we wanted to mostly just give a shout out to all the DMs out there and just say how much we appreciate all the work you do to make the games great, because you guys have to do a lot to create worlds, characters, different stories. And really, I would say that I am thankful that there are people out there with that kind of passion doing this kind of work. And I mean, honestly, if your players aren't telling you how much they appreciate your gaming sessions and everything like that, well, I'm telling you how much I appreciate it. So it's not a thankless job that somebody just has to do. And as one, what's the tier below Forever DM? Is there like a semi Forever DM? Like,
Well, you got lucky. You got in a group with there's at least in our gaming group at least 3 forever DMs that you are in it amongst our friends. Me, you, and one other friend of ours are pretty much always forever GMs. So together we are not forever GMs now.
Yeah, our powers combined equal the Voltron of semi-forever DMs. It's a very strange occasion, but needless to say, we still want to say thank you to everybody. And of
Absolutely.
course, we're going to have some conversations about the kind of advice we've seen, maybe what we've experienced and all that kind of stuff. And so if you do like what we do on this channel, and you want to say, hey, we want to give these guys some support, don't be afraid to click that like icon, hit a subscribe button, and maybe just give us a comment. Say, hey, you guys, we really appreciated your advice. And if you have your own advice to share, don't hesitate to throw it in the comments. We love talking with you guys in the community. I know Brent spends many late nights just clacking away on his keyboard, keeping up with folks and everything like that. You also see me and Jeff in the comments too, even though
I don't think you've ever seen me in the comments.
Well, I've seen you in the comments.
Maybe a couple other live streams. I have tried to get some chat going in the live streams.
Yeah, but we like talking with folks, because it helps us be the best version of ourselves, at least in terms of game mastery and stuff.
Yeah, this is definitely all about learning for everyone, not just us. It's sharing our experience, learning from your experiences, and kind of building that community and ideal. So
yeah, so this channel really wasn't set out to be like how to be the best game master or anything like that, but it did set out to be people that tried, explored the realm of tabletop RPGs and see really what it has to offer. And what we discovered over the last year and some change in months is that the tabletop RPG space is really big and it's really diverse, and there's a lot to learn based on what you're doing out there. So let's talk about what we've seen. Now, you guys can get advice, and you guys have probably seen DM advice, heard it, experienced it, and all those kind of things. Why don't we go around the table here just a little bit, because obviously we're all sitting at the same table. Sure, why not? It's the same virtual table.
there you go.
And why don't we start with something that you guys feel has been like it's helped you in the DMing world and all that kind of stuff. Brent, do you want to go with a quick first? Like, what's one piece of advice you might suggest that you could give somebody? Be like, hey, let's make your life. Let's give you just that random piece of GM advice.
My favorite GM advice that I think a lot of new GMs do, and I've discussed this before, but my favorite piece of GM advice is don't ever lock an important piece of the story behind a dice roll that they may fail. Because 100% you will probably run into a brick wall and be like, oh, I needed them to have that, and now I have no way to give it to them without without ruining it. Like you can give it to them, but then they probably know you're just giving it to them, and that.
So a situation where you have to kind of Deus Ex Machina your way out of that.
Yeah, don't do that. Just if they need it for the story, just give it to them. Just be like, oh, you find the clue, not hey, roll a dice roll to see what you find in the room. You found nothing at all in this room that's super important to the story.
Have you guys experienced? Have you experienced that yourself? Like where you were running something and you were like, this super easy dice roll. Like,
yeah. When I especially when I was newer to playing games, like that was something that I did, and I didn't make the mistake once. I made the mistake multiple times before, like I realized, oh, this is a bad idea. Because there's always that moment where you're like, oh, they just got unlucky. We'll try it again in this other game, and then, oh no, they missed it. What do I do? What do I do? Scramble, scramble, scramble. And then like I've actually run games where that's happened, and then I was like, well, it's the end of the session for the night, guys, because we need to figure out what's going on.
You got to design plan B on the fly.
Yeah. Like or take a week to design plan B. Yes, I've done that before. And not only that, but another GM friend of mine, we had a big brainstorming about that because he said, yeah, it was something that I did. I've done a lot too. And so that's one thing that I always try to throw out there is because you think that's a cool, like, you think that's kind of what's that's kind of what the mechanics are there for, right? You're like, oh, they have this, search mechanic and they're going to search out the clues and stuff like that. But like anytime there's a chance to fail, you probably should just give it to them. If you're going to do something, lock a clue behind a dice roll, make it something that adds more information or something like that, not something that's binary. They either get it and know or they don't and don't know.
Well, seems like the investigation halted in its tracks because we didn't find the bloody note that was hidden behind the dresser.
Exactly. Exactly.
I think it's even more than that because I think like as a GM, like if you've got your first piece of magical treasure, if you're playing something like D&D or something that a character didn't think of that they really needed to to complete their build. Like you're going to get them a piece of gear if they do this thing that's not like straight combat or finding it on their bed, because the cat brought it in. You make this plan and you have this build up and it's going to be a really cool payoff. And then you just have to swallow because they took a left turn at Albuquerque, right? They just
or like you give it to them anyways. You're like, oh, you failed that roll? For some reason you find the bloody note anyways, or the item. And then it just kind of
it's any important plot thing, right? It doesn't just have to be
exactly. Exactly.
Could you imagine like this? Because I could see this totally being a scene that plays out where you're like, okay, well, they need to find this critical piece of information to know that it's actually Lord Manchester who's the villain. This is going to be really good when we have the big reveal. Okay, roll your dice. You rolled a critical failure. Well, you find a note and it says that Manchester's the bad guy, and they're like, I critically failed that roll. This is obviously a red herring.
Wrong, yeah. Or I think another common one is like you'll set up this fight with a big bad who has a specific weakness, and like they have to roll to find this item that's going to be the thing that actually kills them, and then they don't find it, and it's like, oh. I guess he'll come back later or something. Like, and then you climactic
plot where they get beat so fast that they get imprisoned by the big bad guy, and now they have to. Now it's a jailbreak.
Yeah, now it's a different story. Yeah, exactly.
But there are fun times when that kind of situation happens. Like I just find Fandelver and that flaming skull was like my favorite thing for you guys.
No,
I really. Because you guys are like, haha, we got it. And then you guys like backtracked. And
that's a little different because that was us actually being dumb. That was if like there was a neon sign painted somewhere that said, Bob is the murderer. And we were like, nah. No. And then just walked right past it. Bob, bloody knife in hand. And we're like, nah.
Seems circumstantial.
Seems like an illusion that is
this is
untrue.
Mike is obviously trying too hard to paint this Bob character as the villain. I'm sure he's just the victim in this entire thing. And Bob's
Yeah,
just like, no, I
exactly.
did it. Just hang me.
Bob's like, I'm a cannibal, guys. I eat people. And you're like, oh, come on, Bob. You're much too nice for that.
We've known you all of 5 seconds. You're obviously a
Yeah.
better NPC than this.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of my like key pieces of advice, especially to new GMs, is like don't at the sake of being like engaging with the system and interesting, don't hide something that you feel is important behind a dice roll. Because God, like it may work a couple times and it'll be really cool, but that one time that it doesn't and you're just stuck because you don't know what to do now, it's the worst feeling in the world.
Or it might almost, you could almost say like, make sure that there's multiple pathways forward, given a circumstance. And it's especially in important in investigation games, because like if you don't find that piece of evidence and there's nothing. So you have to kind of create multiple avenues and
being like, okay, go ahead and roll again. Oh, you rolled one again. Can you do one more time? Like after a while, it becomes obvious is what you're doing.
Right, you just turn it into a skill challenge for the entire party.
Yeah, somebody else roll the dice. Somebody else roll the
dice. They only need one succce.
Yeah, actually, you see him rolling dice. So why don't you all roll dice? Just
you see him looking. Why don't you look too?
You guys look like you're feeling left out. I feel like you should get in on this.
Everybody look harder. God damn it!
Oh Jesus, that's pretty funny. That's pretty good. So no, that's actually really good. Honestly, I think that's a good piece of advice, and I think I've experienced that myself. And especially in games where like
it sounds like such a good idea. Like it sounds like such a good like role playing game idea to be like, oh, they'll have to use these abilities to find this thing, and then it's like, oh, you suck at these abilities,
or you need to like have your strength roll to break into the castle door, and nope. I just failed it. Apparently,
that door is built extra strong. That must be a magical door because
I didn't take my pre-workout today. Like
I think that's happened for me before too, where they're like, "Oh, well, we're gonna break in. We'll just break open the door. Like, I have a strength of 18. I can get in." And it's like, "Oh, I failed that roll."
Yep.
What are we gonna do now, guys?
The walls are unscalable, and the door is the only way in.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Well,
that's
plan
good.
B. I mean, I think the caveat, right? The corollary to that is, if you really want to keep it in, if you really think it's going to be cool and they're going to get a shortcut, fine. But have the long way mapped out.
Yeah. So you have an idea of what long way.
Yeah, have an idea.
Yeah.
At least consider it.
So yeah. No, that's good. So Jeff, what about you? What's if for all the GMs out there that may or may not be asking for our advice, what would you might consider that'd be like, hey, something this has helped?
I think the best piece of advice, because I have not run as many games as you guys have, but I think before I did, it was with like paying customers on a new release thing, just to hype up one of the D&D versions. And I think that what I was told was that just be ready, because at some point something's going to happen and a player is going to get directly confrontational with you out of character, whether it's a rules lawyer situation or it's something that somebody thinks is unfair. Somebody's going to get injured and act personally. And what I was told was, you're there to facilitate the game and to make an enjoyable experience for everybody. It doesn't mean you have to give the players everything they ask for or make it super easy, but create some space. Don't react personally, even though the attack is probably personal. It definitely feels personal in the moment. Be ready to be able to handle that in an appropriate manner. And it comes up at the weirdest times. Everything's going well, and then somebody gets 5 bad rolls in a row. That one guy that swears that they never roll below a 12. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, well, statistically, that's unlikely, but sure.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I thought when you said be ready, you were going to be like, be ready because your players are assholes and they'll just do random shit. I wasn't expecting be ready because your players have brass knuckles. Like,
well, I don't think they're going to let's go out into the parking lot. But I think we've all over our careers seen confrontation. I've been part of a few. I had a horrible rules lawyer complex for a while, and until I realized, do you know what? Does it really matter if the guy running the game is saying, let's handle it this way. And I think part of that is setting expectations at the beginning when you talk to everybody, when you first meet and first get ready to go. Like, I'm going to make some rulings during the course of this campaign, and some of them may go contrary to the rules in the moment for thematic purposes.
Yeah.
I just need you guys to understand that. I'm not trying to create a whole new game, but I'm trying to keep my game moving along, and you guys, along whatever path that you'd choose to take.
Sure.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, and honestly, I think that you're more likely to have those types of confrontations in the beginning of any group that's just kind of come together.
Where you don't know each other.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that do like looking for a group, or they just go down to their local game store and they go, hey, is there a board or a sign up that I can just join a game? Meetup is a common app. And then, you get into that group and you find out your personalities just don't match up, and that happens. I mean, you trust me. I mean, if that didn't happen, obviously we wouldn't have the D&D horror stories subreddit.
Yeah, that's true.
But that horror story subreddit is a very active place for people that feel very motivated to share their experiences with either bad players, bad DMs, bad storytelling. You know what I'm saying? Like all kinds of stuff. So there is a sense that be ready, especially with a new group. Be willing to give concessions, but also as a DM, be willing to not like give in to all of your players' demands, because
just remember to be adults, I think.
Yeah.
And if there is one of those situations where I've never been really I've never been the direct person that's involved, but I've seen other people where two players just did not like each other for some reason. For some reason, the moment we had this new player come in, there was just heat between him and the other person.
You hear the music, and in the back of your head, you're like, it's on.
They're just looking at each other weird the entire time. You're like, well, this is vaguely uncomfortable. They don't seem to like each other. And one person's questioning everything the other person does and stuff like that. Just recognize that sometimes that's a situation where you also need to just
maybe take a break for a second
and disinvolve yourself. If that person's going to be there all the time and you can't handle it, it might be a situation where one of you needs to not be in the group anymore. So
it's possible.
Unfortunately, that does happen. But
yeah,
or just take a break. Like I said, I've also had GMs who are been constantly questioned. They're like, we're not playing tonight because it seems like something's going on.
Yeah.
So just
have
boundaries.
It's important though to handle it, right? Because the first time it happened to me, I was told to be ready. And then something out of left field in a moment where it seemed like everything was going great, and it's like, okay. And I, take a breath.
Yeah.
It's okay to have a pause. It's a game. We're all here to have fun. It's not the GM against the players, or are there games where it's the GM against the players?
Technically, there is that mindset that exists out there where the GMs are, and that's an interesting line to draw, because I personally feel like the GM should try to be. It is a little bit confrontational. And hear me out. If you guys in the comments don't agree with me, then you can of course tell me why you don't agree. But I do feel that the GM should try to make it fun, but the GM should also be trying to find ways to make it challenging. And it's not bad if the GM wins, as long as that win condition isn't like, I went out with the specific idea of killing your party. You wanted to go out, and I mean, you have to think about it strategically to say well, how can I make this exciting for the players? Because I'm not playing the monsters like they're morons, because nobody wants to go up and be like, oh, we find a goblin camp. Okay, well, the goblins line up one by one so you can bonk them on the head. Was that fun, guys?
Yes, and you're Bruce Lee looked like he was having an immense time in all of those movies in the 70s, Mike.
I question the term win, because I think the GM wins whenever the group is having fun. I don't think winning a combat is, because as the GM, I guess here's another point of advice that I was given at one point, that you're the GM. If you want to win, you want to win the combat, you can do that whenever you want. You can easily put enough challenges in front of the players to where they can't overcome them. And so it's important to remember that the point of the game is to you win when everybody has fun. You win when people talk about your game a year later. And that's the stuff to think of. you don't necessarily win combats. And there are games that are more like, there's games that are openly confrontational. I can't think of anything on my head where, like off of my head, where it's like either the players, yeah, but there are games that are where it's like there is a win condition for this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, if that's baked into the system, that's fine. What I more mean is don't just make it challenging so that it's like you understand your players, you understand their capabilities, test them, make sure that they are willing or going down that, and then but it's because it's like I said, it's no fun to bonk a line of goblins. You'd rather have goblins that are sneaky, or like a wolf pack that is using its pack tactics, or like a situation where they get into diplomacy and you guys have to rely on.
Yeah, it's to tell a good story.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a combat story, then the combats need to be challenging. They're not, they're the story is there to make your character feel heroic, not not like an assembly line and a hammer.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Unless that's really what your players want. They want like feng shui where you're just murdering mooks by the thousands. Like,
so it's kind of like oh, you guys want a dungeon delve? Here, welcome to the Tower of Infinity, where they're
right.
Nobody's been able to reach the top of the Sky Tower because it goes to the heavens, but those that do ascend to become a deity. Are you ready for the challenge?
Right, exactly.
Fight.
In gaming lately, they talk a lot about social contracts. Like in Magic, they talk about a social contract, and 40K and Wargaming, they talk about a social contract. And the social contract's present in tabletop RPGs too, where you kind of establish like what the players expect, what you expect, and kind of how you're all trying to reach, together, tell this story. And I think that's important.
It's true.
That's what your session zeros are for.
What? Session 0?
Yeah,
I think we may have had an episode on that.
Yeah, we've talked about session zeros fairly regularly a few months back, and then I think we just kind of we know how we play with each other, so we don't necessarily have to do that same.
We still almost always have at least half of the first session be a session 0.
Well, yeah, mostly character creation and kind of expectation setting, yeah.
But and talking about what type of game it's going to be and kind of what we expect from the game. I think I think even if your players, like, you can glad hand some of it during the conversation. Like, you can be like, and this is kind of how we're going to do this. It's kind of like normal. We have expectations because we've played together a lot. So like, we don't need to discuss everything, but you definitely should do that with a new group. Yeah. And you should check in with your new players to make sure nothing has changed once in a while too. So. Yeah.
Perfect.
What about you? What advice do you give? Did you get that you think is important for people to know?
So what sagely advice do I have? None really. I of the advice that I really felt made me the best DM that I can be, because here's the deal: as people can see on these actual plays that we run and everything like that, I would not consider myself the best DM, but I consider myself at least a proficient DM, and I'm always trying to get better. And one of the things that I would strongly recommend to everybody, and this is something I've really discovered over the course of the last year plus a couple months, is that I felt that my DMing from when we started this entire weekly episode thing to now has only improved. And one of the main reasons it's improved is because we've run many, many different types of games. And I really can't stress that enough as a DM, because it's like, how do I say? First of all, it's kind of like, it gives you different ways to like approach different problems. And so, like, if you're playing a system, like, because I mean, I come from the D&D lineage, of playing games. And don't get me wrong, I had maybe played a game or two here and there outside of D&D, but I have a lot of D&D background. So most of my, like, I mean, I'm a well-trained machine, quote unquote. I'm a well-trained machine on how to play D&D, but when you start playing other games that are not D&D style games, it like literally took breaking the mold for me to get into the mindset and understanding how it's happening. But since then, it's been like, oh, well, how can I use this to create better NPCs for this type of game? I really like how this game, presents, so I don't have to do as much work up front, but I still get a quick and dirty way to create NPCs, or how do I create locations, or what can I do to make story beats mix together, or how do I introduce an investigation? or certain elements of different types of things. And I think that that's really good. And that's one of the probably the types of videos that we might start doing is might start doing more system specific tips, because we've been running so many of these and kind of giving our impression on them. But I felt that it's been a blast to just like do aliens, do Vason, do
practice. Like it's doing your reps. Like the more
Yeah.
you do it, the better at it you'll get. So that don't get discouraged. Like if you're a new GM and the game doesn't go exactly how you wanted it to, don't get discouraged, because just keep doing it. If you enjoy it, keep doing it, because you'll get better at it. One of the things that I really struggled with when I started was ad-libbing when something went contrary to what I had in mind. And you really need to just practice that, because like players will, kind of like we just implied earlier, players will do the most insane shit that you don't expect. And sometimes you're going to have to modify your story to match that. But being able to, and just having reps on running games is the way to do it. I think we've even seen improvement in the way IGM, just how I've been doing it more often and as a player. So yeah, I think that's the thing. Is just keep going, just keep playing.
And the hard part is, I know we've discussed this in the past, if you're not able to find people that that want to run the game that you want to run, go online. I'm sure if you like, the hard part about it is if you want to run a game, like this is that total Field of Dreams stuff. If you build it, they will come. If you say I want to run a game and you put it on the Reddit, it will literally at least get a couple people, unless you have coded your language and nobody understands what you're saying. I mean, if you just say, hey, I want to play Aliens Charity to the Gods, I want to do it Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Pacific for 4 hours at a time, people just are like, I want to play that game.
Yeah, people in this hobby space want to play games. And one thing that I will say to all of us out there who are GMs is, if you are willing to GM a game, you are needed. Because a lot of people don't want to do it, or are scared to do it. So, like one of the reasons that I think I like to think we started the show is to encourage people to take up that mantle and be the GM. Like, don't be afraid of it, because you can tell a good story. It's just a matter of trying. And we can give you some tips to that, just because we've made a lot of mistakes.
Yep. And you definitely won't be as bad as this guy. I've had, my lows are pretty low, not gonna lie. So, but you know what? I've learned. And I think that, if you guys want to see just how much I've improved, go watch some of our other streams. We'd love to hear your feedback, your comments. I mean, somebody even recommended it, even watched one of our Monster of the Week games the other day, and we're happy to see how we ran that scenario just because they were interested in running it. And you can get ideas. You can definitely watch it and go, I am not going to do exactly what he did there. Or you could be like, hey, that's a clever thing I can include in my games. Either way, you at least learn something. So
hopefully.
Or you could say, these guys are idiots. One of the three.
These guys are clown shoes.
Clown shoes. The biggest clown shoes. Which I don't think that's the name of our next episode, is the biggest clown shoes.
Biggest clown shoes?
Yeah. I don't think people would get it unless they made it 28 minutes into
clown RPGs. I need to go. I know what I'm looking for after the podcast.
Oh my God, please.
Hey man, based on everything that I've seen over the last year and a half, there is probably one, maybe two.
There's probably more than that.
But we'll talk about that next time. We'll let you know how many clown RPGs Brett was able to find the next time we get together.
Oh, there's got to be a Juggalo one, right? There's got to be a Juggalo RPG, tabletop RPG somewhere.
There might be.
A Dark Carnival tabletop
I
RPG.
hesitate to call Juggalos clowns.
Did the magnets work in that game or no?
Yes, but no one knows how.
Oh, that's fair.
That's fair. All right.
Physics is hard.
Physics is hard. Okay. Well, that's it. So thank you once again to all you GMs. Stay strong, be creative, have fun. We appreciate you. And of course, we would love to hear how you're doing. So let us know in those comments. But how do people get a hold of us, Jeff?
You can find us on social media. We are on Facebook, Threads, Twitter, and YouTube as @RollWise. You can also email us, rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
And as always, thank you everyone who made it this far into the podcast. Please, if you can, throw us a like, a subscribe. maybe leave us a comment. We really appreciate it. It really helps get the show out there, and maybe we can convince more people to GM. But as always, roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there, everybody.
Thanks.
See ya.